bag. Now, that's a simple one. If you want to get a little bit more chef-like, and I definitely like to do that quite regularly, you can knock up your own version, okay? And you can get as creative as you want. So the first thing that I've done in this little sample here, you'll see there's lots of ground bait and pellets and all sorts in there, and bits of rock salt and different attractors. I add a bit of this pellet, so that goes in to the bottom of one of these partitions in the tracker bucket. On top of that, I then add some of this salty stick mix that Mainline do. Lovely attractors. Everyone knows that carp love salt, and they love fishy stuff as well. It's like a salty, fishy mix. That goes in there as well, just a few good handfuls if you like. On top of that, I then add some raspberry plumed pellets, okay? Still using the PVA and bag mix pellets that Mainline do. I've just glazed them in raspberry plume, left them in the sun to dry, and I saw on the underwater film that carp definitely took a liking to them. They visited the spot and kept attacking the bag with them in. So just a sprinkling of them. I don't want too many in, it could cause too much attraction. And then quite simply after that, I just add some of the activated hemp mix by Mainline as well. The word activated gives it away. On the bottom, it will sort of fizz up and do all sorts of wonderful things. And that's, you know, quite simply what you want on the bottom to create a bit more activity, and hopefully fish moving over the top are going to be attracted by it. Now, I used to actually add some goo into the mix before I cast out. All I do now is once the solid bag's made, this is actually a medium-sized one, I quite simply just inject the nozzle of the goo bottle into the bag once it's all made and just squeeze some of the goo in there, and that's the way I use it when I'm solid bag fishing. So that's bait. We're now going to look at the rig that I put inside a solid bag. The first two things you need to know is I like to keep the length quite short, normally between 4 to 5 inches, sometimes shorter depending on the situation and the bait I'm putting in, but always with a soft braided hook link. You know, a lot of people I've seen putting mono in there and coated hook links, and the problem is that'll coil, you'll get rigidity, and it will just look like a bag of spanners, to be honest. So Supernatural in 18 pounds or 25 pound is my chosen braid that I like to use. So what I do, take a captor curve out of the pack, a size 4 I've been using, certainly in the last year. After watching the underwater film, I noticed that carp weren't put off by a big hook. In fact, it helped with the hooking efficiency. I saw Dan using a size 4 on a D-rig, a size 4 curve, and it nailed one of the smaller fish that came in the swim, and that was all the convincing that I needed. I tie a knotless knot to the captor curve. Once I've done that, what would normally form the hair has been cut off quite simply because it's just a tag end. To that, I just slide over a little bit of shrink tube, only about 4 mils worth. I'm not a big shrink tube fan, I don't have lots of it, and the curve shank already has great hooking efficiency. And you'll notice there's only a couple of mil protruding there once it's melted down. Once I've done that, I slide on a little ring swivel. Really like the addition of these. It was something that my mate Gaz Fairham showed me years ago, and it's really served me well, both in solid bags and just standard pop-up rigs. And then quite simply just put on a hook bead. You'll see loads of these on the market. Just pick one that doesn't slide around the shank. I like these ones, they stay in position quite well, and it means it can withstand a hard cast, and it'll also obviously stay fine in a solid bag so you're not putting any pressure on it. Once that's on there, note the position of it is sort of level with the centre of the point. Not quite as far down as the point and not quite as high up as the barb. That's just so it sits, if it's on a pop-up, quite aggressively like that. Or if you like to slide down the sinker that I've put onto this hook link, I use that to house the putty on the braid. But the great thing with this rig is you can either fish it as a bottom bait or a wafter like that. Okay, so quite simply I could substitute this pop-up, this Mainline cell pop-up coated in goo, with a wafter or a bottom bait one, and then just have the IB fake food on top to counterbalance it and just give it a little buoyancy. Or like this one, because I've got a pop-up on, it will sit up beautifully like that. And as to how you put the hook bait on with the ring swivel, thread through a bit of floss, and then just slide the two baits which are housed on a braided boilie needle, sort of sandwich the floss into the braid needle, and then just pull them on there, and then just with a boilie stop tie a few granny knots over the top of it and steam them down with a lighter, and they're bang on, and that won't come undone. When you're fishing with a solid bag, you want everything to be nice and streamlined, okay? Often also you're fishing into weed. I love using them in weed and when I'm snag fishing, so I tend to always use a drop-off system and an inline setup. So if you have a look here, very simple to do. I've got a safe zone leader here in weed green. I've cut off the ring of the ring swivel that comes already spliced onto a loop. Then I'll thread on a tail rubber at the other end, just wet the safe zone leader and that'll slide down nicely. And if I show you what part of the swivel I crimped down to give you that drop-off element, this is the part that you would normally tie your hook link to. But if you notice here, my hook link's tied to the swivel that's spliced on to the safe zone leader, because this end is going to plug into the lead to form the drop-off. All you do is take the actual crimp tool and just close that down only a fraction, and that makes it slightly looser to go into the plastic insert on the inline pair, and that'll be absolutely bang on. So it means as soon as a fish picks it up, shakes its head, you get two things. Not only does the lead come off to give you direct contact with the fish, you also get the sort of anti-eject property. It shakes its head, trying to use the lead almost to help get the hook out, does the opposite. It actually causes them more bother, and they sort of shoot up to the surface and they're absolutely nailed. So there you go, that's the rig, something I love using in solid bags. Now let's look at the tricky part, tying a solid bag. Getting the solid bags perfect is what it's all about. There's two reasons for that, right? The first thing is they go out beautifully. If you had it saggy and it's likely to sort of go out, the wind's going to flutter it around, there's too much giving way and you're going to lose accuracy as well. So for distance and accuracy, you want the bag formed perfectly like this. The next decision you have to make is the actual bag size. Now the solids range comes in 4 different sizes. The small that you see here is actually my favourite one because I think it's the most versatile for the majority of the fishing that I do. However, when I'm fishing in real heavy weed, if I'm casting onto blanket weed, then I'll be using the medium and the large. The reason for that is because when that bag opens up, especially with the contents that I've shown you, it will sort of fold open and actually just sort of give me a bed for my hook bait to sit on. First thing I do, take one out of the packet, take the solid bag out and just pierce it once right through with a braid needle, okay? That's going to help push the air out. Now get the little spoon and just quite simply just scoop in a couple of sort of spoonfuls of the ground bait into the bottom of the bag. Once you've done that, I then add the lead. A lot of people try to put the lead in last, but if you want it streamlined in flight, then you want to make the nose heavy. So the lead goes in and the hook link just sort of hangs out. I then carry on filling the bag up until it's about 2/3 full, and then I just carefully place in my hook bait, just running the hook link down so it sort of works its way along the side of the bag wall, okay? Once that's done, I then top it up with a bit more ground bait and then just quite simply start tapping it in the palm of my hand. And by doing that, what you're doing is actually making the contents get tighter and tighter until, look, if I push down there, that's solid, all right? But once it's in the water, it'll open up nicely, but you want it solid in the cast, I mentioned. So by tapping it down, you achieve that result. Then just lick your finger and then just rub it along the inside of the bag, okay? Once you've done that, twist the bag, okay? And then just lick the outside of the bag, and that just helps you form this. Look, this lovely formed crease. A lot of people like to use PVA tape to tie them off. I prefer to lick and stick. And the good thing about these solids range is they are the most versatile bags I've ever used, okay? Some don't stretch very well, some don't lick and stick very well. These do it all, okay? So once you've done that, it's all about getting the corners streamlined. So you just tap them in, and then again, just wet your finger, put it on either side, or lick the corners, and just fold them in, and you're gonna have a beautifully formed bag like that. But that's a solid bag. To get the best out of them, that's how you need to pack them. Just a brilliant way of fishing. A top tip for you when you're solid bag fishing is make a loop in the end of your main line, okay? And this allows you to speed fish, because the great thing is I like to use the safe zone leaders, which already have a loop fused in the end of them, okay? You can also mimic that with lead core, and you have loads of bags or a couple tied up, and it means you wind in and instantly you thread the loop from your main line through the loop of the safe zone leader and just quite simply pull through the already made solid bag and just quite simply pull it through, and you've gone from not fishing to fishing within seconds. Oh, you're away. Well, good morning. We're at a venue that I've grown up fishing, to be honest. We're at Layer Pits in Essex, flanked by the main man, Tom Dove. And what we're going to look at over the next couple of days, if you like, is our approach to day session carping. I'll be utilising solid bags. Tom will be doing what he done so beautifully at Sandhurst. We're going to try to show you how the methods that we use throughout the DVD are transferable to all different lakes all across the country, you know. So whether you're a northerner telling us why we don't come up north, I promise you all of these methods, they will work anywhere on the planet. And look at that, it's a lovely common. Beautiful. They really are wonderful fish here, and they bring back fond memories of my childhood.
Oh, it is on the pink one.
On the pink one, there you go. So that's this is what you were using at Sandhurst, isn't it, David?
Yeah, trusted old Almond, mate. Got to get in it. Lovely.
Lovely. Beautiful.
Well, here he is, a beautiful layer common of about 15 pounds. It's late October now, completely different venue, but same result with very similar tactics.
Right, just get this on the rest. Now I'm going to take you through the bite indication system that I like to use on short sessions and long sessions. A lot of good accessories here from the Delkim stable. Now the first one is something that I'm really fond of. This is the ES indication set. Now I used to use the longer version. That comprised of the longer Nightlight Pro and the longer Duo Carb, which is actually extendable. Now what they did through popular demand basically is create an extra short version, and all that simply happens with this is the Nightlight Pro just slides in and just connects with a jack socket straight into the bottom of any Delkim alarm, either the TXI or the EV. It's perfectly compatible with. And the Duo Carb, the reason you use it is because of this. You know, yesterday was one of the windiest days of the year. Today it's still quite windy, and the last thing you want with a bobbin with relatively slack lines is for it to be sort of shaking around in the wind. You're going to be getting constant bleeps, and the Duo Carb totally eliminates that. So if I just show you any indication here from fish is shown, and that's what I like about a swinger system. Sometimes in heavy wind, compared to a bobbin or the stow, just having this alternative option gives you something that sort of added security in wind, if you like. Now the great thing about this is it just connects. I can even show you that. Have a look at this. Just clips on there onto the D-lock system. It comprises of a shoe and foot, and basically you just quite simply with an Allen key put one part of it into the buzzer bar, and then the Delkim also takes another part of the system, and it just clips on and off. So at the beginning of the session, just clip your alarms on, and at the end, take them off and put them away safely in another pouch. So it's a real clever little system, that. And this is called the Smart Clip. Now, the great thing about this Smart Clip is if you buy a rod that hasn't got a line clip on it, like these new Whisker DFs that don't have a line clip, but don't worry, because this Smart Clip really does come to the rescue. It goes on really easily. You've got one big sort of rubber washer that just swings around the front and the back of the clip and just hooks in there, and that's what sandwiches it against the blank of the rod. And if I show you this, if you like line clips, then you'll love this. It's got two little sort of ball bearings magnetised in here. Now you could have it just running like that, so just like a running line clip, just giving a different angle and indication, if you like. That just increases the sensitivity of your bite indicator because you've got two sort of different angles there. Now, if you want the line clip element, then you can just pull it into here. So you can have it clipped once, or if you want the added bang of a line clip, you can have it clipped twice. So you've got it once through the ball bearing, if you like, and twice through different clips on the actual line clip system itself. So that's, if I show you the resistance it gives, I'll pull it right up, have a look at, now listen to this, one clip, two clips, and then it's onto that, and then when you pick the rod up, that'll stay in that, and then when you strike, that'll come out of it. So it's a really clever system, and the great thing is you can cast with this on the rod. I've got to admit, me and Dovey weren't too sure when we first started using them whether you'd be able to cast with them, but you really can. And if you want to increase the weight of the bobbin, I like to have them about a foot away from the front of the alarm, but if you move it away from the alarm, that'll increase the weight that you transmit to there. And obviously you've got different stack weights that you can add on to all of these systems that they've got. Onto the Nightlight Pro you can add stack weights, but I like to just keep them the standard weight and just adjust if you can move it along, and that basically reduces the weight. So you can have a slack line, but with the bobbin still quite high up. So a real nice system. And just to finish that off, if you like snag ears, and these are really, really tighty, these are the Delkim snag ears, and they quite simply just slide onto a little battery plate that comes complete with them. So you take off the one that normally comes on the alarm and just replace it with this one, and they just slip in there quite simply. And obviously if you're fishing left or right out of your swim and you don't want that rod torn off the rest, then snag ears complement it beautifully. And the other thing is they just look really nice, don't they? Let's be honest, those little ears poking up into the sky, they just add something else to your setup, and everyone likes to stare at them, especially on a slow session when you're not catching anything. Nothing better than to be looking at a nice tighty setup. So there you go, that's the indication system. Next we're going to have a look at some of the hardware.
Well, this is my third bite now. I went a little bit quiet for the afternoon, and I realised that the people that do catch over him, when I've caught before, it's when I've kept very busy and kept spodding. So I got the spod rod out, had a few spods, my right rod's tore off, so I'm just putting out a mixture of stuff today. I've got some hemp, maples, corn, some crushed cell, little bits and bobs, and then I can fish whatever I want on the hair then. It seems to work really well here. You'll notice as well that I've got much smaller reels with me today. I tend to take my lighter little setup to dating waters like this. I've got a 2 3/4 longbow and a little M-cast BR 3-spool reel, and it's just perfect for waters like this. Number 3, beautiful. Well, a cracking layer pit's common, and this one definitely goes to show that if your swim goes a little bit dormant, keep busy, put some spods out, and it can definitely get you some extra bites.
I've managed to bend into one now on a solid bag, which is the methods that I was showing you at Sandhurst in difficult conditions, so it didn't really show this method off that well. And to be honest, being one of my favourite methods, I felt a bit sad for them, to be honest, but they really do deserve to be shown in the best light because they can be devastating in the right situations. When I come to layer on a normal session or any sort of lake of this type with a good stock of fish, Tom and I and any of the Team Corder boys would be looking to change methods all day long. Now I mentioned the hardware to you, and this is the first fish that I've actually hooked and playing on a Whisker DF. This is a British built rod, and the action of this is very different to other rods that I've felt, to be honest. It's got a real nice backbone, but a really flexible tip. And it's chucking them solid bags out so easily. They're just punching out there with almost no effort. And I've just coupled it with a cross-cast BR. So it's got the 3-spool mechanism on it. It's not a huge big pit reel. It's what I would describe as a medium big pit. Perfect for fishing somewhere like Layer. You need to be casting sort of 80 to 100 yards regularly. And this offers you exactly that. Look at that, you can just hear the purr of the spool, it's lovely. Really nice balanced setup, and with a Whisker DF, which is available in all the usual test curves, it really is a lovely setup, and I'm enjoying using them. And they're very accurate, and that's what you find with the British blanks. You know, where you aim is where they go. And when you're as dodgy as I am, go on Dovey, ease away, double takes are us. Beautiful stuff. Let the old blonde wizard get out of the way. I'm going to be working our way this way. Getting trashed at 80 yards. Right, I'm going to work our way over here. We'll keep Dovey in the background. Come on, beautiful. Yes, lovely. You never get bored of catching layer pit carp. There you go. Another one.
Whoa. Oh. Gosh. He's in there, Al.
Yeah, he is. The deepest net in the world. Well, there you go, Dovey. Nice start to the morning.
Yeah, result, mate, isn't it?
And really, really important, isn't it, to, you know, stress to everyone at home, it's all about keeping busy on these sort of places, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think as soon as you let your swim go dormant, the fish go away and you don't catch anything. So keeping busy, putting spods out, recasting your rods, putting more glue on, putting a new bag on, cast it back out again. That's what you should be doing all the time.
Exactly. So the sun's coming out, the carp are playing game, and we're going to slip these back, and hopefully there's a few more layer carp yet to come.
Here is another little layer common. It's early afternoon now. Put a few more spods out. I had a bite, Ali had a bite. Unfortunately, he lost his one, but we've landed this one. Ali's putting some more spods out now to see if we can get some more action.
Tom, come over here, son. You always keep things simple, but you're always busy. That's an important part of short session carping, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely, especially in waters like this when you've got a lot of fish in the water. You make sure you keep busy. There's always an opportunity to be able to make sure you don't miss it.
Right, great stuff. Right, time for you to go home. We're going to carry on carping into the darker hours.
Welcome to the next leg of our team called a masterclass. This time it's a masterclass on French commercial fishing. We've picked a lake called Karpie, about 4 hours from Calais, because it's the typical kind of place that loads of people target for their holidays from all over Europe. So not just the English fish here, the French are here a lot, the Dutch are here, the Germans, the Belgians. They all come here in their droves to catch fish that are over 65 pounds. I'm here with my good mate Darryl Peck. There he is there, carp catching machine that he is. And we've got 2 swims that give us loads of water, but as you can see, after that 4-hour drive we are racing against the sunlight, so we're going to get the rods out and then talk tactics in the morning. And how about that for a way to start our masterclass on French commercial fishing? A 56.25 pound mirror carp from Karpie. Oh, well tough with this one, well tough. 1 of 5 in a night. And after casting in really late, some of the casts went out in the dark. Every rod went last night, and they're properly on this high impact boilie. Really important to give these big fish a lovely oxygen bath. It's a trick that comes from the bailiffs at Gigantica. Helps revive fish, especially when the water's very warm, because there's less dissolved oxygen in warm water. While he's in the sling, just let it just keep cascading into it, all through his gills. And especially when you've got a fish that's very lethargic, you will feel the life come back into them. Look at that, what a carp. I'm going to get this fella back now and talk to you about spots in the swim, because choosing a spot at the start of the week is absolutely key. Oh, mwah. Thank you, my love. Off you go. I've chosen an absolutely gorgeous swim. It's normally a double. I've been allowed to use 5 rods here by Olivier, who runs the lake, because I've got so much room, and there are so many areas in this swim. But the main 3, you've got the margin down the side of that island, down there. That just looks absolutely gorgeous, proper fishy down there. Then you've got an open water area out in the middle. That's going to do fish, no doubt about it. And then down on the margin there, I've already had bites off of that margin. You know, it just screams carp along there. It's a no fishing bank. And most people will be tempted to fish as far down there as they can. I'm not going to do that. So first of all, to talk to you about how I'm going to map the swim out, the bottom of the lake. The reel is a Basia, which is a little bit extravagant as a marker reel, but I've had this one for absolutely years, and you can see the floating braid on there has gone almost white where I've cast it so many times. Floating braid is very, very thin. It's got no stretch in it, so when you feel the lead hit the bottom, it really exaggerates that feeling. Much, much better than mono. So if you're going to use a marker rod, you really should have floating braid on it. That's got a 50-pound armour cord leader attached to it. I've used a 4-turn water knot to join the two. That takes the force of the cast, and when I'm using a marker float, it stops the marker float from tangling on the cast. And then the rod, this is a Daiwa Longbow DF marker rod. So very, very stiff, probably 4 1/4, 4.5 pound test curve, and that is so important with a marker rod. I've used a few other people's marker rods over the years, and they've got a really soft tip. I can't understand why people do that. The stiffer the rod, the more you're going to feel down the rod as you're pulling the lead along the bottom, and also the further it's going to cast as well. And this has got a fantastic recovery. This will cast the lead absolutely miles, and that's really important. If you can't marker float or fill the bottom with this rod as far as you can fish with your fishing rods, it's limiting you. So you want a really stiff rod with floating braid on as your marker rod. And you can see there's no float at the moment. All I've got is a probe lead on the end of that, and what I've basically done is made a big loop. If I can hold that for you, I've made a great big loop in the end of that armour cord leader, and I've looped to looped on that probe lead. They come in 3 ounce and 4 ounce. This is the 4 ounce version. No coating on it, which means you feel more as you drag it along the bottom. You can see that one's properly beaten up where I've been dragging it over the bottom. So what I do first of all, I'll be casting this out around the swim at the areas where I feel like I should be fishing. And I'll be feeling the lead as it hits the bottom. It might be weedy out there, I don't know. Cast out, feel it hit the bottom. As it happened this time, it crashed down, which meant it was either gravel or very firm mud. And cast around, and it was just crashing down everywhere. So it's really clear out there, so it gives me a good indication straight away of what I'm fishing on. Unfortunately, when I got here, there were fish showing out over that middle area, and that copse of trees in the distance that sort of dips down, they were showing in that sort of direction, and I literally just cast the lead out to roughly where they were showing, felt the lead hit the bottom, crash, it was nice and clean, just pulled it back a little tiny bit, just went ding, ding, ding along the bottom. It's not really gravel, it's just sort of firm mud, and I know it's clean out there, so I then clip up the line, wind it in, and then go round the Signet marker sticks. And it actually turned out to be 26 turns round the marker sticks, 26 rod lengths, which is 104 yards. So that was my middle area sorted straight away. Oh, just had a bleep. Oh, I think we're in on the left-hand rod. So this is the middle area that I saw the fish showing when I first got here, and where they're jumping is a great indication of where you should be fishing. I wasn't worried about the depth or anything. If they're showing there and it feels good, that's where to start fishing. And I'm fishing 2 rods out over that area, and then just for ease I decided to cast the lead up that side bank, and at exactly the same distance, 26 rod lengths, and it went crash again. That's plenty good enough for me. So it means when I'm using the throwing stick, I know it's the same distance with the stick over all those rods, and that's really key. If I'm spodding as well, I'm clipping the spod up at 26 rod lengths, so I know if I'm spodding, I can put bait out on both areas without having to muck about. So that's that side of the swim. If I was fishing here with another angler, that would be my water, and the other angler's water would be down that margin and out into the lake. And that next area, it just screams carp down there. You've got a no fishing bank that's probably 300 yards long, swim 3 fishes up it as well, and I've just gone down to a decent distance down. It's ended up being 23 rod lengths down there, which is probably about a third of the way down. And again, I've just cast the marker rod with just a lead on the end, and got it clipped up, one really close to the trees, which happened to be 23 rod lengths and a foot, and then the other one is coming away from the trees, and I just did it at exactly the same distance. Once I'm happy with those two spots, what I'll do is I'll loop to loop the lead off. That's the point of having the loop on the marker rod, so I haven't got to cut the line. And then slide on the stem of the marker float system, then the bead, and then loop to loop the float on. And put the same probe lead on the end of the stem, whack it out. It's obviously already clipped up at 23 rod lengths over there. Let it up, and then I can go around and use it as something to bait up to. And then once I've baited up the first time, I know where the float is, I know what it lines up with on the opposite bank, I know how far off the bank it is. I can then go around there without the need for the float and just keep baiting up. And on one rod, because it's so close to the trees, I can literally throw them in. And then the other rod, I'm catapulting them out with the new Korda catapult. And literally it's only 15 yards off the bank. It looks a long way from here, but when you go around there, it still looks pretty close. And I'll just carry on baiting up without the need for the marker float. And I'll do exactly the same thing on this long area. I've put the float out on the long area and I've used the throwing stick. And I've seen that in conditions like this, I can get 3 baits 100 yards. 3 20mm boilies, I can get 100 yards because I've got the wind slightly favouring me. I'm guessing into the wind, it's probably going to cut down to 1 bait or go that distance. But I now don't need to keep using the float every time I want to put bait in. I've got the spod clipped up at the distance as well. I'm using the Sky Winder, which is the solid spod for putting out whole and half boilies, maybe a few tiger nuts. And the other great thing about those spods is when you put them out, they float on the surface and you can use that as a marker to bait up to with a throwing stick. So you're not putting a marker float through the middle of the swim, so you're not potentially scaring fish. You can put a spod full of bait out and then use that as a marker and put baits over the top. And if you use the new brightly coloured spod braid that we're doing, that will also get rid of the seagulls. It's not a problem here, fortunately. But in the UK, and I know in Holland and Belgium, some of my mates over there really complain about the seagulls. And having that bright coloured braid on the surface, it doesn't stop them diving, but it stops them landing. So you can get bait out with a throwing stick and the spod and get a nice spread of boilies out there. I've basically taken a good couple of hours casting around, making a note of all the distances. And because we're using the Signet distance sticks, to get under that tree over there is 23 rod lengths and a foot. It's always going to be 23 rod lengths and a foot. So if I come back here next year or in 2 years' time, the cast is going to be exactly the same. Out there, I'm getting bites at 26 rod lengths. That'd be exactly where I'd start next time I came. A good spot is a good spot. So all those things, they go into creating a really successful session. All that extra effort, the time and trouble at the beginning of the session. You know, you've got 7 days in the swim. It doesn't matter if you cause a bit of commotion on the first day. It's better to do that than catch nothing for 2 days and then start doing it and potentially ruin your swim in the middle of the week. He's getting quite close now, this fish. Come on. In you come. First one for a little while in the daytime. Get in the net, come on. Yes! Wicked. I think this is going to be a good session, you know. What a chunky one this is. We shall call him Starburst because of all them little tiny pin scales down by the wrist of his tail. Proper chunky French mirror. And this